Welcome to another episode of the Common Man's Take on Sports with Kevin and
Quentin.
all right, let's talk about some college football. So we are almost done. There's only 2 weeks left of the regular season, right? And so there's definitely been some teams that have set themselves apart. And I think that there's going to be some pretty good games going down the stretch. So I'm gonna start this show out. I'm gonna give my um, top 10 rankings as I see them and the way that I think the college football committee should rank them. But we all know they're going to do what they want anyway. Um, so this is just based off what I've seen in the games that I watched this weekend. This is the way that I think everybody should be ranked. The top 10 anyway should be ranked. So I'll start off, Quentin, and then you can give me yours. So number one, I'm going to give it to Georgia right now, even though they're. I've kind of been unimpressed by them lately, and I'm not really buying into the Ole Miss game because honestly, I really thought Ole Miss was overrated anyway. So I'm just, I don't know. I thought that Georgia was going to dominate that game going into it anyway. I'm just not. I'm not sold on them. Honestly, I think Michigan should be number one, but Georgia is yet to lose, so I'm going to leave them at number one. My number two is Michigan simply because they went into Happy Valley and they had grinded out a really tough road win, but they did it under some pretty interesting circumstances. They were missing their head coach, which they didn't even find out they'd be missing their head coach until they were on the flight on the way. They found out by social media that Jim Harbaugh had been suspended by the Big Ten. The Big Ten didn't even tell him. And so, that really could have distracted from the game and kind of distracted the players, but they didn't let it. They stayed focused. They went into a hostile environment and a very hard place to play in Happy Valley, and they beat a top 10 team with the number two defense in the college football. And I was extremely impressed with the way they gritted out that win, and I think that they deserve to be number two. My number three will probably surprise some people, but I have Washington because they have that tough win against Oregon, and they continue to gut out wins. They did have a scare against Utah, but Utah does have a good defense, and they've given several teams a scare. And so Washington is my number three team. I think they've done really well up to now. The only thing in question for me for Washington is I still think that their defense is a bit lackluster. But I mean, they got stops when they needed it, and that offense is explosive. So they're my number three.
I mean,
Number four, it ain't your turn, son. Be quiet. Go ahead. I'm listening.
I wouldn't put Washington at number three just yet.
Okay.
Because of the defense. I think the defense just isn't that good, and
Well, you'll have your time here in just a minute to shine and give your top 10, and we'll see. Number four is Ohio State. Um, Honestly, as much as it pains me to say this, I think their defense is improved this year. Do I think it's good enough to win a national championship? I'm not sure yet. But and they have had some struggles that they shouldn't have, and some games they shouldn't have struggled in. But at the same time, they're still winning, and they've gritted out some of those wins. So they're my number four team. Florida State is number five on the outside looking in, and I did that solely because they almost lost to Miami this weekend, and that's not the first time that they've almost lost to a team that they shouldn't have. Like it was, their error of margin against Miami is razor thin sharp. The only thing that saved them, for me watching that game, was that quarterback that was in for Miami got hurt on that final drive, and they brought in the quarterback that got benched, Van Dyke,
yeah.
and he threw that pick to seal the game. Before he went out, that quarterback from Miami was making some plays.
Yeah. I think that Miami benched Tyler Van Dyke because he was a turnover
Yeah, he was
machine.
struggling.
Yeah. He had once I checked his stats, he has now 12 interceptions on the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's a turnover machine. So I mean,
Number 6 for me is Oregon. Ever since that loss to Washington, they've been reeling off some teams and back to dominating. I think they got a really good defense and a good offense. So number 6, number 7, I jumped Texas with Alabama just because I think Alabama's been on a roll, and I think Texas has been falling off. And my professional opinion, not that I'm a sportscaster or a professional at this, but I think if Alabama and Texas played tomorrow, Alabama wins that game. Even if Brooks doesn't get hurt. They did lose their running back for the season, which is unfortunate for him because there's only 2 games left to play. He tore his ACL, so he's unfortunately out. But I think even with him in the game and Quinn Ewers back, I think that if Alabama and Texas play again, Alabama wins that game. I think that Jalen Milroe has grown since that loss to Texas, and he's shown his growth throughout the season in some of these tougher games he's played. So that's why I did that. Texas is obviously number 8. I moved Louisville up to number 9. They've been reeling off some wins too, and they look pretty good over in the ACC. And then number 10 for me is Oregon State. They've had some pretty nice wins lately too. So that's my top 10. Honestly, you could probably switch up Oregon State and Missouri if you wanted to. Missouri is just on the outside of my top 10. So, they could have just as easily been in that spot. But I think that Oregon State, at least for this week, deserves to be in that 10 slot because they've played some pretty good games. I actually had some pretty dominating wins too lately. So that is my top 10 currently as it stands. Just the way from what I've seen for the games that I've been able to watch and what I've seen from these teams here the last couple of weeks. So now the floor is yours.
Alright.
What say you?
Alright, so my top 10 are number 1, Georgia. I mean, Georgia, impressive win against Ole Miss. Ole Miss didn't have a good defense, so I expected Georgia to rack up a lot of points.
I wasn't really impressed with that win, but the fact that Georgia is still undefeated, I give them the nod for number 1. Go ahead.
I mean, I think Ole Miss is overrated too. I just think the defense is horrible. Because they've allowed 30 probably close games to teams they shouldn't have, like Texas A&M and Auburn.
I agree.
Other teams.
Yeah, they barely beat Auburn. They barely beat A&M. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. I feel like their schedule is a little fluffed, and they barely beat those teams that it's fluffed with. So that's kind of why I'm not really impressed with the Georgia beating Ole Miss like that.
Yeah, I mean, I expected Georgia to rack up many points because Ole Miss's defense is horrible. I expected Georgia's defense to kind of stand out in that game, stop Ole Miss because Ole Miss's offense is okay. I mean, but their defense, Ole Miss is just like USC right now. Ole Miss is just like a USC. Because they have a horrible defense, pretty good offenses, and they're losing because of their defense. Like, look what happened to USC because of their defense. They have 4 losses on the season. I mean, that's all because of the defense. So, put Georgia at number 1. My number 2 team will be Michigan. Michigan. They went into Penn State and just beat them in Happy Valley. I mean, to play Penn State at Penn State is a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to beat them there. Because in 2021 it was a close game. Michigan barely beat Penn State in Penn State. And, I mean, for Michigan to go in there without their head coach and beat Penn State in Happy Valley That's just amazing. I mean, that's one of the tough places to play. Um, you know, and Michigan just knocked the wind out of the crowd. So I gotta put Michigan at number 2. Then my number 3 team might surprise you. My number 3 team would be Oregon. And put Oregon number 3. Because their defense is great, their offense is great. They have a great football team, and I think Oregon deserves to be in that college football playoff once again. Because they're a great team, even though they lost to Washington. I mean, ever since they lost to Washington, they've been great, and I think they deserve to be number 3. The number 4 team would be Washington. You know, I think Washington deserves to be at that number 4 spot because they've had some scares. You know, against Oregon they had a scare, and against Utah they had a scare, but USC kind of gave them a scare, and I think but Washington has gotten stops with the defense when they needed to, just like in that Oregon game, and I just gotta say I think they deserve to be number 4. Then my number 5 team will be Ohio State. Ohio
Really?
State. Yes, I mean Ohio State. There's some games on Ohio State's schedule that they don't need to struggle with, and they struggle with. I think Michigan State was a game they were supposed to win like that 38-3.
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to win by that. And I mean, the Rutgers game was not supposed to be a tough one. But Rutgers wasn't that good on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense just isn't that good. And I don't think they should struggle with Rutgers in that first half. But, I mean, they got wins, but they were supposed to. So, I got to put my number 5. Number 6 team, Florida State. Florida State, they got a scare against Miami, and I think they got a couple scares, like against a little bit against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's defense kind of stopped Florida State, and I just think Pittsburgh's offense needs to be better, and that would have been a good game. But I mean, I think that Florida State should be number 6 because they're scared to Miami. You know, that's always that Miami Florida State game's always been a great game over the years. The 80s very close, the 90s very close, but usually it'd be Miami winning by a last second field goal miss or game tying field goal miss by Florida State, and it's just been that way from the 80s to the 90s. I don't think Florida State should have struggled with that game, but I mean Miami's big problem was the QB position. I think it's the QB position for Miami this year. You know, Miami's been looking really good ever since their loss to, I think, Georgia Tech, that was. They just haven't been that good of a team, and they've been losing, and they just had trouble with the QB position. I think if they had a good QB, I think Miami wouldn't have lost to probably wouldn't have lost to Georgia Tech, and wouldn't have lost to Florida State. Maybe. Number 17 will be Alabama. I think Alabama deserves to be at number 7 because ever since their Texas loss, Jalen Miller has been getting better and better each game. I think that Nick Saban wasn't so sure about him. Now I think he's sure that he deserves to be that starting QB. And I think that Alabama is a really good team. Ever since that Texas lost, and I think that Alabama deserves to be ahead of Texas. So my number 18 would be Louisville. Louisville, great team. You know, I think they deserve to be number 8 because they're a great football team. You know, and they're right now pretty sure they're second in the ACC at 9-1, and they're uh, they're looking really good. You know, and if they continue last 2 games of the college football regular season, I think they will. They might have a chance to win the ACC championship game. In December. So number 19 would be Texas. Texas had a struggle against TCU when they weren't supposed to. You know, TCU's not that good of a football team.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they should have struggled with TCU. You got Jonathan Brooks out for the season with an ACL tear. That's kind of surprising, but I don't think Texas should have struggled with that type of team, like TCU, because TCU isn't that good of a team. So I think Texas should have won by a larger margin, and I think that Texas shouldn't have allowed 30 points in that game to TCU, because TCU isn't that good of a team. So I gotta drop Texas down to number 9, but they gotta win. So I'm not gonna get them out of the top 10 though. Then my number 10 team will be Oregon State. Oregon State has been looking pretty good. You know, ever since DJ Oyunlele transferred there.
Uyunglele?
Yeah, he's been a great QB, and I think he's getting a reboot. Just pretending that he did not transfer from Clemson, and he's being a better QB. And I think he is a great QB with Oregon State. He's having a lot of success there, and I think Oregon State deserves to be in the top 10. You know, they're a great football team this year, and I think they'll have a pretty good year this year.
Can't argue with that. I think they're playing well too.
Yep, that's my top 10.
All right, it's our top 10 after what week are we in?
Week
12.
Yep. So that's
Yeah.
to week
So
11.
2 more weeks left, man, and college football season's over. There will be bowl season, well, conference championships, and then bowl season. But man, it's bittersweet. 2 games left. College football season goes too fast. All right, so let's go ahead and shift over to some NFL while we're here, and let's talk a little bit about some of these. We're going to talk about some of these games, but we can kind of talk about where our rankings look after week 10. But so I knew the Panthers and the Bears game would be an ugly game, and the Bears, neither team wanted to win. The Bears finally won 16-13.
Yeah, that was
last Thursday night.
That wasn't a surprise to me. You know, I knew that it would be a low-scoring game because both teams weren't that good, and I think I pictured that the Bears would win because I knew that the Panthers just wouldn't have enough against the Bears. I had a feeling that the Bears would win, and they did 16-13. That doesn't surprise me at all. That really doesn't not.
So I told you about the AFC North, and man, that prediction is coming true right now. So the Browns beat the Ravens. I didn't think they would. I thought the Ravens would be motivated to win that game, and they did come out hot. Ravens were up 17-3. And then the Browns came storming back, and they ended up winning that game on a field goal, I believe.
Yep, 33-31.
And so that division is still tough. That's probably the toughest division in the NFL right now, with the Browns, the Steelers, and the Ravens, and the Bengals.
Yeah.
And so another tough matchup is Thursday night, the Ravens and the Bengals. And so the Ravens barely won the first go around with Cincinnati by a field goal, I believe. So that's probably going to be another tough one there on Thursday night between the Ravens and the Bengals. So I'll be interested to watch that one. Then you got Detroit and the Chargers. And so, again, Detroit came out hot, and they went up 17-3. And then all of a sudden, the Chargers came storming back. And then it was like a boxing match, man. Haymaker after haymaker. The Lions, ran down the field and scored a touchdown. Then the Chargers turned around and ran down the field and scored a touchdown. And this was literally the game that the last person with the ball won. And Detroit was the last one with the ball. And so they grinded that clock out with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter with the ball in their hands and kicked the game-winning walk-off field goal as time expired. What a game that was.
Yeah, that was a very good game. I mean, I expected...
That was a crazy game.
Yeah, I expected the Lions to really shut out the Chargers.
Like, you're talking time of possession. Lions, 30 minutes and 34 seconds. The Chargers, 29 minutes and 26 seconds. Like, that's almost identical right there. Total drives, Lions obviously had the last one, so they had 10 and the Chargers had 9. 64 total plays for the Lions, 68 for the Chargers. 533 total yards for the Lions, 421 for the Chargers. Like, neither defense got on the bus, or got off the bus, I should say. Like, both defenses stayed on the bus clearly. But the offenses got off the bus because, man, they were cooking on all cylinders.
Yeah, there was passing.
Passing,
total yards, 333 for the Lions and 323 for the Chargers. That's only 10.
That's insane, man. 2 passing touchdowns for Lions, 4 for the Chargers. And then the Lions had 200 total rushing yards. The Chargers only had 98, so I guess the Lions defense showed up in the run game. But, wow. Like, that's insane. I don't remember the last time I saw the Lions have over 300 passing yards and 200 rushing yards in one game. And 3 more rushing touchdowns. And there was only 1 turnover in the game. Chargers threw an interception. Herbert threw a pick. But, man, like, that was... that was one offensive explosion by both teams. Not even going to talk about the New England Colts game. Like, neither one of them were very good.
No.
Minnesota beat the Saints 27-19.
I mean, I didn't expect that. I expected the Saints to win. I expected the Saints defense to be tough against the Vikings offense, but I mean, I guess the Vikings overcame it.
Yep. So actually, let's go back to that game. The New Orleans defense did not get off the bus in that game. They allowed T.J. Hawkinson over 100 yards receiving and like 3 touchdowns in the first half, and I think that's a record for a tight end the first half of a game. He had an insane first half. Man, he went off. The Niners destroyed Jacksonville 34-3. So San Francisco beefed up their defense at the trade deadline with some pretty big acquisitions. So they will see if that continues to pay off for them.
Yeah, because Nick Bosa, Chase Young, they've been really good in Chase Young's debut as a 49er.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 3 points. Jacksonville couldn't do much. I mean, that 49ers offense just was really good. That ends Jacksonville's 5-game winning streak ever since starting 1-2. So Jacksonville will now be 6-3.
Houston pulled off the win against Cincinnati, walk-off field goal.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a tough game.
I actually thought Cincinnati would win that game, so that surprised me that they let Houston sneak out with that win.
I mean, I thought it was gonna be a high-scoring game. I had a feeling Houston was gonna win because I know Houston's offense pretty good. Their defense isn't that good. Cincinnati's defense is good, but they lost some parts in the offseason. And I think that since his defense just couldn't stop Houston, and I guess Houston came out with the win.
I know they were missing some offensive pieces too, I think.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, they struggled with the Packers, but they ended up winning 23-19. So Pittsburgh moves to 6-3.
Yeah. Just a little history. Packers haven't beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh since 1970. So I mean.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
53 years ever since Bart Starr was there.
So Seattle beat Washington to move on to 6-3. They beat them by a field goal, 29-26. Dallas destroyed the Giants, which I said they were overrated at the beginning of the year, and I was correct.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas Raiders eked out a win against the Giants, 16-12. Our Giants against the Jets. And then you have the Broncos-Bills game last night, in which the Broncos won. And so now the Bills sit at 5-5, which means they better get it together, or they're in danger of not even making the playoffs right now.
Yeah, I mean,
as a matter of fact, if the season ended today, you'd have the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns. And then you'd have the Jaguars, and then the Chiefs, and then the Eagles. Sorry, not the Eagles. Excuse me, the Chiefs. And then it would be a toss-up between the Raiders and the Bills, who currently sit at 5-5. 5. Yep. Actually, no, the Texans would make it in before them, 6 and Chiefs 7. So, yeah, right now the Texans would make it in over the Bills or the Raiders. So, right now the Bills wouldn't even be in the playoffs. So if they don't get it together, they won't make the playoffs.
No, I think the Bills have been having some trouble ever since the offseason. With that whole Stephon Diggs thing.
I don't know what's going on there, but boy, they better figure it out.
Yeah, because, I mean, the Bills just haven't been that good of a team this year, and they need to fix whatever's going on in Buffalo, because
right.
They might not make the playoff, because right now they're sitting
right now your playoff picture looks like in AFC. It looks like the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns, the Jaguars, the Chiefs, and the Texans. That's your playoff picture currently as it stands. That's the top teams in the AFC. That's the top 7 teams.
Okay.
And then when you're looking at the NFC, you're looking at the Eagles, the Lions, the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Cowboys. Saints are currently winning their division. And then next in line would be the, I don't even know, Vikings, I guess, at 6-4 would be the 7th team.
Seahawks.
Yep. The Vikings would sneak in at 6-4, more than likely, in NFC.
Yeah, they would.
Yep, they would be the 7th team. So yeah, that's what your playoff picture looks like as of right now. That's the top 7 teams in the NFC and the top 7 teams in the AFC. That's crazy.
Yep.
So, man, a lot of stuff going on. A lot of teams starting to separate themselves, and you're starting to see that, upper echelon, the kind of, next level down. You have your top echelon like the Chiefs, the Lions, the Ravens, which the Ravens kind of dropped down now. And then you got your dark horses or your middle of the pack guys who get into the playoffs right now. So that's what it looks like right now. Man, college is almost over. NFL's halfway done. So football season is, man, almost over. The NBA is playing their in-season tournament right now. They're currently playing it. We'll see how that kind of plays out. That's all I really have for today. Do you have anything else?
Nope. That's all I have.
All right. That'll do it for our show today. We thank you for listening. Don't forget, recommend us to your friends. Please subscribe and like. If you don't like listening to podcasts, but you still like listening to us, then hop on over to YouTube. We got a YouTube channel, same thing, Common Men's Take on Sports. And in 2 more episodes, we'll do our first video recording episode and post it on our YouTube channel. So be looking out for that. You guys have a good night.